Alright, welcome to another tutorial. This one I'm going to show you how to create a basic ASP.NET MVC3 web application. Um, so all you have to do is when you click new project, go to the web portion. I use C#. You can do the same with Visual Basic and choose MVC3 web application. If you don't see this, then you simply need to go to asp.net slash MVC slash MVC3, install it, and then restart Visual Studio, and you'll see it there. So we'll name the sample application. Make sure to choose internet application. I use Razor. Some people don't like it. It's up to you. I think it makes things a lot easier. Besides that, click OK, and it'll auto-generate your application. Oh, I guess I didn't press OK. Alright. So it's doing all the work in the background. Now we have what is basically a runnable excuse me, a runnable ASP.NET MVC3 application. So if we click this or press F5, it will open up your application. As you can see, it's just basic right now. An about page, a home page. You can log in and register already. Well, not already, because I have to wire up the data for it to be able to store user information. So let's go back over here and stop it. And then what I will do is show you what I do next, and that is manage Nuget packages. Right here it shows what you have installed. I always remove jQuery UI, but you don't have to if you don't want to. I just don't like it. Validation is a must. I uninstall IntelliSense because I don't use it, but you can leave it. And then jQuery and Modernizer are a must. And then the first thing I do after that is go to updates, because these are all out of date. So I update them. And then once that's done, just because I'm kind of OCD about it, I get rid of everything but the scripts that have .min in them, because I don't plan on editing any of these files. I don't need the full versions. I just need the minified versions. I also remove all the Microsoft Ajax stuff because I've just never had to use it, because jQuery does everything. And then I leave Modernizer. Delete all those. So now that we have our basic application, I'll show you the structure. Content is where you put images, style sheets, anything, media basically. You could put it other places, but that's Microsoft's suggestion. That's what I've always used it for. The controllers are exactly what they mean. They're the controllers. If you're familiar with MVC architecture at all, then you know what a controller is. But I'll show you in a moment what a controller is. Then we have models. That represents a data model. I showed you the scripts. and then these are the views. These are what actually, like here's the home page, the about page I showed you, the login, the register, and then change password, which I haven't showed you yet. So these are the front end representations of the site. Layout is the main layout of the application, and this is where Razor comes into play, because previously using ASPX you would do something like this. If I can even remember, it's been so long. So, you know, you would do this to display something, a variable, or you do this to write out some code. But now with Razor, all it requires is an @ symbol, and that's it. There's no closing tag. If you want to, most people just, as you can see, it's mostly used to print out single things, but you can also do this. And now you can, you know, do any sort of function. And then we can go down here and print out var A. And there's var A saying hi there. So basically, the layout page is the bread and butter of everything. You can have multiple layout pages, but this is where everything, it's a layout. It's where your design lies. You can have multiple layout pages. The first thing I'm going to do is, since we updated jQuery, I'm going to change these to the correct versions. And then I'll go over some of this stuff here. So viewbag.title, this is going to print out whatever you set the title of the page to be. So traditionally I do site name and then title, and then down here I'll change it to site name. Now if we go to our index.cs.html in our home directory, which works through this home controller, which I'll show you in a second, as you can see, the first thing you do on a view page is you set the title. So I can set this to, this is the home page. And here's another viewbag.message, and then here's that message we saw about ASP.NET. So we'll go ahead and remove that and say, hi, this is content. Now, this viewbag.message is being set in our controller. So here's the controller. This stuff is grayed out because I use a add-in that warns me about that. And this is basically how you create some sort of action within the controller. It's called an action result. So right here we're setting that viewbag.message, which is fine. You can do it. I usually don't. I think the common methodology is to do everything in the controller and not to do anything on the front end, which is a good thing to follow. But for something as simple as a message like this, we don't really need it. What did I do? Alright. So instead of print, now it's going to print nothing because I deleted that. So I'm just going to do, this is the H2 title. So now, normally I could just go here and refresh and it would work, but it's not going to. Yes, it is. Oh, duh. Alright. That's because I didn't change any critical functionality. What happens is, like if I say eBay, what am I using that for? That's only used on the Razor pages. Ubag.new title equals hello. So now if I try to go to the index page, what did I name that? New title. It should say hello, but it's not going to, because anything that you do in the controllers and in the models are compiled as an actual DLL. So if I build, it says hello. So for instance, when you upload a website, it will, the only thing that it will upload is the bin directory, the content, the views, the scripts, and then global web.config and packages is a good idea to put on there. All this stuff, the controllers and models, you don't need to upload because those are in this DLL right here, just to safeguard your code. Anyway, but back to what I was doing here. Alright, so let me finish explaining controller. As you can see, the about page is in this controller. We could create a separate controller called about controller. It's really up to you. It's all about what you want your URL to look like. So this about page, since it's in the home controller, the URL is going to be /home/about. But if I created a whole separate controller for it, it would just be about. So if you look at about here, see it's home about. So I'll show you how to create a controller here. You just do public action result, new, and then you return view. This is the simplest way to create a new page. It's going to show red because we don't have the page. But the cool thing about Visual Studio is you can right click on the action result name and click add view, and it'll ask for the name, you know, whether you want to use Razor or not, and I'll go over this stuff later. And then you can choose whether you want to use just the default layout page or you can select a secondary one. Click add, and now we have the new controller, and now this isn't red anymore, and we can go to layout, and I'll show you what these action links do. So the HTML command has a lot of useful stuff. So here we'll call it new. We can leave it home because it's in the home controller. This is a controller name, and then this is the action name. So add that there. We're gonna have to build, otherwise the new won't show up. There it is, new and new. Alright, so far I've showed you the basics of it. I'm assuming you can probably pick up on the rest of it as you go, but we'll talk about models here now. Models are basically a way to define the data associated with a certain structure, I guess you would say. like here's here's the account model. So for everything that you would do, you create a model for it. So this is the change password model. And there's actually an easier way to do this, but this is the way that the model comes prepackaged. So basically, you create a model, you define what is required, and you add the error messages, the data type, the name, and then you put the standard get set, and that's how you would manually make a model. The way I prefer to do things is to add a new item to your models folder, go to data, click ADO.NET Entity Data Model, which is using the entity framework, which is amazing to me because it makes this stuff so much easier. So then you choose generate from database, and then you choose whatever. I'll just choose my database, but you can create a new connection to whatever you want, whether it be a local database, included in your query string. Thank God it's not showing the password right here. And then what you do is you choose what you want to include in the model. So as you can see, I've already got all the ASP.NET stuff put in there, and I also have some other stuff here. So I'm just going to include everything. And what it does for you is it creates a nice model here showing your links and all your tables and how they link together. But the biggest thing about this, which is amazing, is in your database, let me see here, you don't have to worry about telling ASP.NET what is and isn't a required field. So if I open up this table here in design mode, it'll show you that at least SQL Server, that's all I really have experience with, so forgive me if there's not a way to do this in a different database, but as you can see here, you can allow nulls or not. So this stuff is all allowed to be null and this stuff isn't. So when you create that model, Visual Studio is smart enough to know that, so you don't have to manually create these models telling what is and isn't required. So, and here's the other great thing. Now what I can do is, I usually do this first, is create this model here. I build my database, and then I build my ASP.NET MVC3 project, and then I go into controllers, right click on it, click add controller, and what it'll do is we'll make this the content controller. It'll ask you if you want an empty controller, but I just choose controller with read write actions and views using the entity framework. And then what you can do is you choose the model. Oh, I have to build it first, otherwise I won't recognize it. Add controller content. So now it shows all my tables that are in the database. So I can choose content, and then it'll ask you what data context class you want to use. And remember, the one I created automatically was called Greg Goodwin Entities. I choose that, make sure it's Razor, and click add. And automatically it created content controller. It added the index, the details, create, the actual create function, edit, the edit function, delete function. So it did all the work for me. It did absolutely everything. So now, if I go to it, the front end isn't going to look that pretty, but I'm going to go to the index here, and it shows that it added everything. Details, create, edit, delete. So what I'm going to do now is show you exactly what it built. So let's go ahead and create another. I could just go to it manually, but I want to show you how to use these action links, which make things very nice. So we will go, this would be, as you can see, IntelliSense tells us that this is the link text. So we'll go content. Then we have the action name, which is going to be index. And then controller name, which is going to be content. So now we have a link. I'm going to build it. Go back over here, refresh. And now we have the content tab. You click on it, and we get an error. Oh, goodness. I forgot about that. There's some reserved names that I'm just going to manually do index. God, how embarrassing. Alright, so this shows all the stuff that's in that table. It shows you can edit anything. And see, these are even separate tables. These are linked tables, and it allows me to edit them, delete them. Why is that not working? Create new. Although, you know, it's not perfect. Like right now, for some reason, instead of sending the contact type, it's sending usernames. So this should just be name. This should just be name. So it's not perfect, but I'm going to go ahead and rename the controller to just cont controller. And it'll ask you if you want to rename it internally, which I do. Of course, it's going to throw errors everywhere because I have to rename the folder here to cont that holds the views. Then I need to go back to layout, change this to cont, build it. Let's go home real quick. Content, now it works. Yeah, there was something wrong with the content keyword. So anyway, so now when I click edit, it actually shows me the content type, not my username and what category. And this is actually using Markdown, which I will use to show you. Also, this URL content, basically make sure that it accesses the root directory with the little squiggly and the slash. I found through experience that it's not necessarily needed, but feel free. Most experts at this stuff would suggest you do it. This html.partial is pretty cool. It allows you to include a partial view. So if I go to my shared directory over here, you can see logon partial right here. That's the logon portion that you see right here. So it's basically another view page that's included. so it checks if the user is authenticated. And when you're building functions like this, oftentimes you have to wrap the text in text like this to make sure that that it's recognized as text and it doesn't try to render it as code. So it checks if you're logged in. If it logged in, it says welcome user, you know, when this is all built in. Otherwise it shows you a logon link. And if you create your own default application, you'll be able to see all this stuff too and learn from it. So what else was I going to show you? Oh, that's right. I was going to show you how to add references. So if you look, this story has some weird characters in it, and that's because it's meant to actually be Markdown. So if I go online here, it shows all the great things you can add to your project, but I'm just going to search for Markdown right now and add, if I can spell right, and add two things, Markdown Sharp and Markdown Deep. The reason I'm adding them both is Markdown Sharp helps with processing the code on the back end, and Markdown Sharp shows the actual visual representation. Alright. So, now that those are added, I can go to, let's close some of this stuff up. I can go to edit here and go down to the story portion here and make this a I'm trying to remember how to do it without going through hoops. Sorry, just give me a second here. I'll probably edit this part out just to be honest. I can't remember everything. So I'm going to pull up this other project and see how I did it. Because, you know, every library has its own learning curve. Alright. Oh, that's right, I added a class to it. Alright, so the class is MDD editor, that's right. So all I have to do is go to this text area and comma new and put the class name and the rows in there. And that's how you add stuff to text areas and editors. It's getting a little more complex now with this stuff, but I'm just kind of showing you the basics, I guess. And now I have to make sure that in my layout page I include I forget which scripts they were. Here we go. I have to include that style sheet. And then I have to, I'm going to do what I usually do and move my JavaScript to the bottom of the page. That's personal preference for me. And then copy this. So now I've included the Markdown Deep stuff, the MDD styles. So on my edit page it'll show this new stuff that I added. So now I refresh and here it is. Not working properly, of course. Embarrassing. Yes, okay. so I can show you how to render additional sections. So in the layout page, since certain pages have certain JavaScript needs that other pages don't have, you can do this render section, which allows you to have an additional element in your static pages. So I'm going to call this custom scripts, and it's required as false. So I can go to my edit page here and do this section custom scripts and put the script in. That way it injects it into the layout page just for this page in particular. So now it'll work naturally. Or not. Oh, okay. Had to build it. So now we have a working markdown editor in which we can actually see what we're typing here. And yeah, I mean, that's the basics of it. I went a little too long. I wanted to just show you how to get up and running and started, but I think I went over pretty much everything you need to get started. If you want to know more about the stuff that you're using, every one of these libraries, with the exception of a few like Markdown Sharp, has a project information link, which will show you, bring you to the website of the maker of that component, and you can, you know, go here for help. If it's Markdown Sharp, which they didn't include a project information, just go to trusty Google Markdown Sharp. There it is. It's Google projects, so you might not get a whole lot out of it. Some of these cool DLL add-ins, people build them and then don't really put much information out there. See, there's no wiki. There are some issues which probably haven't been corrected, but anyway, that's the basics. I'm going to create more videos that cover things in more detail. This is just kind of my first attempt. Please like and subscribe if it helped you at all. I feel dumb saying that because everyone says that, but anyway, thanks for watching. My name's Greg. I've been doing Microsoft development for about 10 years, and I'll start making more of this stuff. Thanks.